Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. On today's episode, we will be covering Dark Skies, a alien film that came out in 2013. I'll give you the brief logline of the film. As the Barrett family's peaceful suburban life is rocked by an escalating series of disturbing events, they come to learn that a terrifying and deadly force is after them, one which may have arrived from beyond the stars. This film is written and directed by Scott Stewart. It's a relatively small cast. I'll go through the list right now. The mom, Lacey Barrett, is played by Kerry Russell. The dad, Daniel Barrett, Josh Hamilton. The older son, Jesse Barrett, is played by Dakota Goyo. And young son, Sammy Barrett, is played by Caden Rocket. There's one other person in the cast I'll mention. J.K. Simmons plays Edwin Pollard, a paranormal investigator slash UFO conspiracy theorist researcher who comes into the film in the third act.
Well, is he really a conspiracy theorist if he's right?
Yeah, that's the thing. We'll talk about that. That's probably not fair. He seems to know everything. I wrote that down in my notes about exactly what the plan of the aliens are in this movie.
Yeah.
And so let me give some explanation as to why I chose this film. This was my choice. For the month of January, we decided to kick off with aliens for our theme. It's almost 1 year anniversary of us starting this podcast, and our faithful listeners know that it used to be called Aliens and Zombies.
For like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then we changed the name. So I felt it would be appropriate to start off with an alien film. This is one that I had seen years ago, and I remember not loving but liking certain things about it. And so I felt this would be a nice film to kind of warm us up into our alien themed episodes for this month.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. I'm usually all about like low budget horror movies and things like this, but I've never heard this before today.
I'm a fan of alien films. That's probably the only reason that I had actually watched this before. I think that it also came on the tail end of a lot of found footage films like Paranormal Activity. One of the things we'll talk about right now before we even get into the trivia for the film and stuff like that, this was originally pitched as a found footage film, and
Oh
you can
yeah.
tell that from the story.
Oh, absolutely. I felt it like immediately too. It just feels like this is supposed to be like okay, like in a POV style camera.
Yes, and we can talk later whether or not it would have been better if it had actually done that instead of making this traditional filmmaking style.
Well, spoilers. I can tell you right now, if this was a found footage movie, I probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
I maybe that's just me, but I'm kind of sick of found footage right now.
Yeah, I think going back to traditional narrative structure gives you a lot more room to work with. So you're not just so confined by the rigidity that is necessary to stick in the house, stick with the same camera setup, the same thing you would do over and over again in found footage. So give us your opening summary and score.
Okay, well, let me give my initial summary of this movie. I said this before we start recording, and I'm going to stick by this. This might be the only Blumhouse movie that we've covered on our show so far that I did not hate.
That's fair.
This wasn't too bad in my opinion, but I think overall this is a 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Okay, so you're starting with a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
That could fluctuate.
To me, this film is a ghost story that is really packaged as an alien abduction film. I like the way it builds the atmosphere. It has a great sense of creepiness and dread throughout. I like the way that they give you a lot of scares that are unique to aliens, space, science fiction types of things.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
But while the premise is really creepy, I think the film needed a little bit more of a kick in terms of personality or acting. J.K. Simmons injects some, but he comes into the film way too late. And that's the thing that holds the film back from being something I would say is a good film. It's not a bad film. I think it's a guilty pleasure. Again, this is why I picked it. I like alien movies, and I think this is one that is very effective, although it could be a lot better. And so I'll start off with a 3 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll start with a rundown of the film, give you some notes and our impressions about things as they happen in the story before we get into our causes of celebration, causes of death, and our script stitch up.
Yeah. And I've usually been wrong with my predictions, saying the plot rundown might be quick. So I'm gonna be wrong on purpose today. This is gonna be a really long plot rundown.
Yeah, this is going to take an hour and a half.
Yeah.
The film opens with a title card showing a famous quote from Arthur C. Clarke that says, "There exist two distinct possibilities. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not, and both are equally terrifying." The film starts showing a montage of suburban America life. You see kids outside playing, spraying each other with water hoses. It's close to the 4th of July. We hear that over the radio. A family is preparing for a cookout in the backyard. And we see that the youngest son, Sammy, is tending to some type of gecko or small lizard he has in the box. He's slash feeding it, almost torturing it. And we hear conversation from the mom and the dad that the older son, Jesse, is at one of his older friend's house. And we cut to see Jesse. He's at this friend's house and they're watching the beginning of a porn. And it's just cringy the entire time.
I We'll get there.
So after Jesse comes back home, the family goes to sleep. Mom Lacey wakes up middle of the night, goes to check on the boys, and when she goes downstairs, she sees that the kitchen is in complete disarray. It's completely trashed. Like somebody's opened the refrigerator, taken all the food out, spilled every liquid imaginable everywhere. She notices that the back door is open, so she slides it shut. Cut to the family the next day saying, like, wow, we don't know what happened. This is really strange. And they wonder, like, who is responsible for this?
Hmm.
The next night, the mom awakes and she sees that instead of the food being thrown all over the place, the food in the kitchen is stacked neatly in columns that pile up to the ceiling. This is the opposite of what happened the night before, and she's startled, especially when her son walks up behind her and she says, like, "Oh, did you do this?" And the boy says, "No, I didn't do it. The Sandman did." The Sandman is a character in a story that he is reading in the book. Him and his brother talk to each other through walkie-talkies from their different rooms. The next morning, they have called the police, and the cops suggest it is probably just somebody in the house doing it, pretty much saying it's your kids. And the parents are thinking, wow, is it really our boys who are doing this? And we see that there's a little bit of strife between the husband and wife. Dad has lost his job. He's trying to find a new one. And mom, who is a real estate agent, she goes to show another house to one of her clients.
Which, look, Dad, I feel for you, man. It took me a year to find my job.
Yeah. And again, I think that's one of the things the film actually does well. They are showing that this is a family that has some underlying issues. You see the way that the tension that they have between them, the fact that they want to keep all of this private, they don't want their neighbors to find out. So, what's going to happen to them is going to be something that they're ashamed of and they don't want to tell anybody else. And I thought that was something they actually handled really well in the story.
Yeah, I can just say this right now. Just that scene where he's just like got rejected from that job and he's just like banging his suitcase against his car. I felt that rage in my soul,
Oh
man.
yeah, I totally felt that with him. And that's one of the things that I found that was interesting is that this plays a role in the story because we see the dad becoming more and more unraveled as the events of the story happen because he's not just dealing with, oh, there's something weird going on in my home. His outside life is also falling apart. So you see him becoming more and more just disheveled. He's unshaven. He's scratching himself all the time, which there's a reason to that we'll talk about later. But I really like the way they depicted that and they gave them a believable domestic issue to be working through.
Yeah, it's a very vicious Ouroboros there to where like both outside and inside suck. So like what am I supposed to do here? The only thing I can do is just fall apart.
Later that night, the family goes to sleep. Again, you can feel the paranormal activity structure because all this stuff is happening at night.
Which let me just say this right now before we get too far. If you were giving me the choice between watching Paranormal Activity and this, I'd rather just watch this, honestly.
Yes, I agree. I still feel that Paranormal Activity was a theater experience because there was that low level, low frequency sound that played so strongly while watching Paranormal Activity that you don't get at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Just again, maybe that might be me just tired of found footage right now. But Paranormal Activity was like a whole lot more boring than this movie.
Later that night, when the family's in bed, the alarm system goes off. And the operator who calls to check on the family says it must have been some kind of malfunction because the sensors indicate that all 8 entry points to the house were somehow tripped at the same time.
Which it's okay to be skeptical at this point. I mean, these malfunctions can happen.
Yes. And so they're like, oh, well, that's odd. But after they get the alarm shut off successfully, they look at the living room and notice that all of the family photos have been taken out of the frame.
Okay, skepticism. It's getting it's wavering here.
A little bit.
Yeah.
The same cop returns the next day, which I found to be a little bit unusual. I didn't think the same cop would come back.
I mean, I guess he's just patrolling that area. So,
And he says, yeah, you guys have to really think about the fact that this is probably your kids who are upset at something that you did. They're upset at their parents. You need to talk to your kids about this. The parents do confront the kids and ask if they did it. Sammy says the Sandman told him not to say anything about it. The dad gets really mad, starts ransacking the son's room, trying to find the missing photos, and he keeps complaining about this irritating bite behind his ear.
which I will say, I'm probably gonna be a little bit defensive of the dad in this episode, but like, let's just think about it this way: why would they think aliens at first?
I actually found the dad's response most of the time to be very believable,
Yeah,
especially up until this point.
most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. The next day, the dad is taking Sammy to the park, and Sammy just starts to wet himself and pees in front of everybody at the park, and he just goes silent and starts screaming. Dad is, freaking out about this, doesn't know what's going on. He calls mom and says, like, okay, we got to bring the kid home. Mom is cleaning Sammy's room, and she sees some of his drawings, and one of them shows Sammy standing near a tall, skinny, dark figure. Then she hears a crash and a whole bunch of birds just slam
It's
into the windows of their house.
it is a legion of birds just flying into their
Yes, not
windows.
just one flock. They later say they find out that there's 3 different migrations of birds slam into the windows of their house. I think this is
Which
actually a very effective scare. It works
it
very well.
it is very effective. And again, skepticism. It's wavering.
Yeah. That night, again, we're back to night activity. Mom wakes up again and she hears Sammy talking to somebody in his room. She just thinks at this point he's talking to his brother, so she's going to go in and tell him to go to sleep. But when she walks in, she sees like a dark, skinny figure near the bed. She freaks out, reaches behind her to turn the lights on, and when she turns the lights on, Sammy is gone and the figure is gone. That creeps me out. That's why I
Dude,
can't watch these movies about aliens at night because I imagine something like that standing over my bed.
dude, I okay. That was I will say this. This movie gets a big award for me because for the most part, they know how to structure their scares because like that fear right there is universal. Just that fear of like, okay, what if I just turn over? There's just something right there, just staring at me. That had like this happens like twice or 3 times in this movie. Every time it gave me a mini heart attack.
Yes, their scares are very effective and very well scripted, as you said. They're not cheap, and they hit on this very universal fear. Even me in my old age still have.
Yeah, again, I don't even really believe that aliens exist. I want them to, but like if I just turn over my bed and just like I see something staring at me, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna go for the cheap shot there because why are you here?
Yeah. And so I really like that scare because it also continues. She's freaking out because her son is gone, this figure is gone. She goes downstairs and he's outside. He seems to be in a trance. He wakes up like, "Mom, why are we outside?" The husband listens to her story and he's still doubting. He's like, "I don't believe this."
I think it's time we tighten our bootstraps here, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're out of rational explanations.
Yes. But at this point, Dad just decides to set up the paranormal activity types of cameras all over the house. Again, you can see the
which
found footage origins
yeah,
of this story right now.
which when it got to the point where he was setting up cameras, I laughed because I was like, "Oh, come on!" Which it made sense in the story for why it was happening, but like, still, come on.
Yes. There is a line here that I think is really stupid. You'll hear me talk about it in the script stitch up stage, but I won't go into it right now. The dad is sitting in front of the monitors just all night. He actually falls asleep at the monitors. He wakes up the next day. Everybody seems fine. And then he reviews the footage from the previous night and he realizes that there was static that was on the screen. So each monitor is basically showing one of the rooms of the house. And then he realizes that if you were to imagine the static starting at the front door, then at the hallway, then at the stairs, then at the bedroom, then back down the stairs, then back out the front door, it looks like, oh, something was hiding in the static frames of the pictures, which is really creepy. They don't see anything yet there yet, but it's a very nicely done sequence, I think.
Yeah, it's very creepy and it was pretty good. But excuse me right now as I push up my glasses and wiggle my finger a little bit. Hey aliens, why are you walking through the house? I thought you could teleport.
Yes. We'll get into exactly why the aliens are behaving this way at the end. We see Lacey go into a trance while she's showing a guest a house. She starts banging her head on the window of the house and wakes up at home having lost 6 hours. She gets a call from the wildlife agency who came to collect all the dead birds and say that it seems really weird. Like these are three different migrations of birds. It didn't seem like a lost flock of birds. These were different birds who all got summoned to your house for some reason. Then Lacey does some internet searching and she finds Edward Pollard, a website where he talks about a lot of different alien theories and investigations.
For some reason, I was imagining like the ancient aliens guy. You know that meme,
Yeah,
dude?
exactly. Yeah.
I was imagining that guy instead of J.K. Simmons.
There's actually some good things that are happening as well as this dark stuff. The good news is that Daniel has gotten a job. Him and his wife celebrate. She's gonna tell him like, "Oh, honey, I figured out that I think our house is being visited by aliens," but she decides not to. Later that night, she awakens and she finds her husband Daniel in the yard. He's standing quietly with his mouth wide open. Then his nose starts to bleed. Then he walks back in the house, goes into the kitchen. Then he's just like, "Wait, how did I get here?" Again, this is very well done, very creepy, very effective. As her husband cleans up his bloody nose, she explains to him her theory, the research she's done into these alien abductions. He doesn't believe her. He says, "You know what? I'm not saying that there's not something weird going on, but I don't believe in aliens. We're not those people."
At this point, when my kid is outside tripping no alarms and my wife swears she sees somebody that just disappeared when the lights went out, I wouldn't be as stubborn, if that makes any
Yeah, he
sense.
seemed a little too stubborn considering the events. But part of me also thought that that's why what is happening in his outside life matters. He's like, "Look, I got a job again. Things are going great. It's not that bad. Let's just try to keep this under control."
Yeah, it almost feels like he's more concerned about the appearance of the family and stuff, like the actual safety of them at
Yes, that's
first.
very true. You see that in multiple ways. So since he sent the kids away for some quiet time with his wife, Sammy is going to the pool with the neighbors the next day, and he seems like he doesn't want to take his shirt off. And when they raise his shirt, they see he's covered in like bruises and marks. And this is also where Jesse is out with his friend, and he hears a weird, like high-pitched sound, and he goes into a trance. And we see that Jesse ends up at the hospital and mom and dad are talking to the doctors about him. The doctors say, "Look, we are really concerned because your son Jesse also has these weird brands. It's like these UFO geometry symbols on his body. So we have to call child services." And they say, like, "Look, if your son didn't do this to himself and you didn't do it, or you're claiming you didn't do it, Dad, then who might have done it?" Dad freaks out. He hates his kid's friends. What's his name? Ratner. He calls him Rat Face.
I could not remember his name, and honestly, I did not care to learn it.
Yeah. So Dad is upset. He thinks that this means that his son's friend Ratner is probably hurting him and putting these brands on him. So he goes and tries to attack this kid. I hated Ratface. He's such an annoying kid. I was like, I wish the aliens would abduct him.
Dude, it irked me the same way that you're irked when you get to that scene in the visit.
That's exactly who he reminded me of. I was like, he reminds me of that kid in the visit. That's the reason I can't finish watching that movie.
Like every time Ratface was on screen, I was just like, "Oh, please, come on, let's hurry up and move on, please."
Maybe the aliens are gonna kill him. Like, no, never, nothing.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I could tolerate Jesse's like little like teenage escapades. I could tolerate that. Ratface, on the other hand, he was just no, get him out of here.
That night, the dad examines the camera footage again from that weird night where he had the static frames, and he goes through frame by frame and he finds in a few images he can see a dark figure hovering over the kids' beds or in the kitchen. And at this point, he says he's ready to believe, and they go to meet Mr. Pollard, the character played by J.K. Simmons.
And probably the easiest paycheck he's ever taken.
Yes. J.K. Simmons is only in this movie for about 10 minutes. He's in this scene where they meet him at his apartment, and you see him at his apartment at the end. This is like kind of part of the epilogue to the film. Pollard essentially says, I'm going to try to determine if you are experiencing some type of alien abduction story. He starts asking them questions if they see aliens, if they've seen bright lights. They're like, no, no. They're kind of laughing off his questions at first. But when he starts to ask other things, are you experiencing missing time? Do you have weird illnesses or marks on your body and other things? They're like, wait, you seem to know exactly what is happening to us. And he's like, yeah, that's because you're not alone. And this is one of the things that really raises this film's score, in my opinion. I love the interaction they have with him here because the mom, Lacey, asks, what makes us special? Why are these aliens, the Greys, that's what he talks to them about, the different species of aliens. She asks, what makes us so special that the Greys want to visit us and, bother us? And he says, "Well, nothing. Why do you think you have to be special for this to happen?"
Yeah, it felt very The Strangers almost, where like the aliens just like, yeah, you're home. That's what we're messing with you.
Yes, and as a scientist, I like the comparison he was making to a lab rat wondering why it's special because the scientist is giving you cancer. And I was like, wow, that hits home for me. And I really felt that his character elevated the film just in terms of how he's there to give this explanation and to really ground it in a way that he make it even more terrifying. That's the scary thing. There's nothing special about you. It's just random, and there's didn't seem to be anything they could do to stop it. So they're like, okay, so what does that mean? We just have to sit here and wait for our son to be abducted? Because what Pollard tells them is that the aliens will usually abduct the first person in the family that they came in contact with. They remember back to their son Sammy's drawings and say, like, okay, that means that they're coming after Sammy. So is there anything we can do to fight back? He says that at this point in his career, he's given up fighting the Greys. He moved to the city. He's got a whole army of cats around him because apparently dogs are aware of the presence of aliens, so they bark all the time. Cats aren't. So he's like, I just needed to sleep at night, so I can't be around dogs. He
Yeah,
does tell them if you fight a lot, maybe they'll just, give up and move on to an easier target.
which I gotta say, I love that because realistically, if we're dealing with a species that's millions of years old, has conquered intergalactic space travel, and they're able to teleport in and out of your house, there's really nothing we can really do to beat them. The only thing we can really do is just make them sick of you.
Yes, and he breaks it down to them in that matter of fact manner where he's saying, look, you can't do anything. You can't even remove the probe that they put into you. You just have to hopefully annoy them enough so they'll move on to another target.
You can't win against these things. You can just make them go to somebody else.
Yes. And that's essentially the only scene that we see J.K. Simmons' character.
Yeah. But I will say what happens next is something I do also give credit to this movie. Because I'm so used to seeing families like drag their feet along and still not even believe, even when they have proof or just like they have confirmation from an outside force saying like, "Oh yeah, it is aliens." Something I give this movie credit for is the fact that once we're out of his like little house, we are immediately standing on business. We're boarding up the windows. We bought a dog. He bought a force multiplier in the gun shop.
Exactly. He is all about business, and they know that they have to protect their home. It doesn't matter that the neighbors are saying, like, wow, you guys are crazy. They're boarding up their home, and
Yeah,
it's
because
4th of July.
because at this point, let's be honest, who gives a hoot?
They don't care. They know they have to protect themselves, they have to protect the kids. They're all huddled inside when the aggressive new dog, it's a German Shepherd named Clyde, starts to bark at the boarded up entrance to the home, and lights start shining through the boards. They all run upstairs and are essentially cornered in a bedroom. Another scene that's a very great scare. We see the mom, Lacey. She hears a TV upstairs and she walks towards the room. And then it's not even like a loud, audible jump scare scene, but you just see the alien is walking behind her as
Again,
she's going to the bedroom, and it just creeps me out.
again, something else that gave me a mini heart attack.
Yes, I just love it because these aliens, like, you don't really even see features of them. They almost just look like black shapes with texture. Like, you don't even see their eyes really, but it's just such a creepy presence. And I really love the way they do that in this film.
Hmm.
The ending is very quick. I'm not going to go through everything that happens in this end scene.
Yeah,
The
because
fam
let's be honest, it's kind of an acid trip at the ending.
Yeah, it's kind of an acid trip ending. The family ultimately gets upstairs, and then the Greys appear all around them, and then we see Jesse seemingly having some type of vision where he's walking through an old house and he's seeing nightmare images of his dad killing his mom and then himself and various other things. And then we cut back to reality, and you see Jesse's out in the hallway, and the rest of his family is looking at him like, "Wait, where are you going?" And then all of a sudden, the Greys appear around him, and he just vanishes with the aliens.
Just poof, like Harry Houdini, just
Yeah, just
gone.
just literally gone. We see the story in a newspaper. We cut back to Pollard, who is reading about Jesse's abduction in the newspaper, and you see headlines saying that the family is under investigation, stuff like that. And he cuts out Jesse's picture and adds it to his wall of other missing children related to aliens. And we see that it's 3 months later, and the family has moved somewhere else, and they're still dealing with lawyers and other stuff. And mom is going through Jesse's drawings from when he was little, and she realizes that there are pictures of Jesse surrounded by alien figures when from he was a kid. And then they realized, wait, the aliens weren't coming after Sammy this whole time; they were coming after Jesse. And then as the film closes, we hear Jesse's voice over one of the walkie-talkies that they use to talk to each other, calling out his brother's name. Okay, and so that is Dark Skies. We'll take a quick break here and come back with our causes of celebration. Sick of your pet just asking for belly rubs, affection, and love? Then come to Alpha Dogs, the only pet store specializing exclusively in super aggressive dogs. At Alpha Dogs, we don't sell companions, we sell champions. Choose from our carefully curated breeds, including dogs that bark and try to bite you during their initial introduction, dogs that just stare at the wall while they're waiting for your instructions, dogs that don't bark, they announce dominance, and dogs that have already decided that you are not in charge. At Alpha Dogs, each of our pets comes with a name that you can't safely say out loud, a leash that's rated for industrial towing, and paperwork that says repeatedly that we warned you. Perfect for homeowners who want maximum perimeter security, zero guests, and a sense of deep uneasiness in every room of your house. Use promo code POSTMORTEM for 10% off your first adoption and a free Do Not Approach My Yard sign, printed in multiple languages. Alpha dogs. They don't want to be your friend, and that's the point. Okay, and we're back. So let's talk about the cause of the celebration for the film. I'll let you get started.
My first cause celebration here is that this film for what it is was actually someone unselling for me.
Yes, I think that the creepy nature of the premise itself and the way that they use the scares and the imagery very effectively make this a very good horror film.
Yeah,
I feel that that's one of the reasons I wanted to cover it. It does cross that boundary between horror and sci-fi, and there are not a lot of films that do that, but I felt like this one did a really good job of that.
yeah, absolutely. I alluded to that earlier, but like those scenes where the Greys are just there, not even trying to scare you, they're just there. Those give me a heart attack.
Yeah, so that creepiness, especially the alien imagery, was my first cause of celebration.
Oh, absolutely.
My other big cause of celebration, and we alluded to him during the rundown, is J.K. Simmons' character, Pollard. I felt that even though he was only in the film for about 5 to 10 minutes, I love the way that he grounded the situation, but also the way that his explanation of it made it so much more terrifying because there's no magical way out for them. It raised the stakes in a way that was so chilling that even with 10 minutes, I think that he made the story so much better.
Yeah, exactly. This doesn't feel like a obligatory, like, oh, we win because the power of friendship or whatever.
Yes, and that's what it does to distinguish itself from other horror movies like this, where there's sometimes oh, this is why the spirit is angry. You just have to do this, or, satisfy the spirit this way, and they'll
They're
leave you
just,
alone. It's like,
or
here,
just
no, there's nothing you can do.
again, I've seen 1,000 of those movies that you just described. I hate those. I just cannot stand those movies where it's just like, oh yeah, all we have to do is just say the demon's name or just speak sternly to it. Cannot stand those. I still
Yes.
can't believe we have two nun movies. It's so stupid.
Yes. There's nothing. There is no what the equivalent of using holy water or a certain religious scripture would be for a movie like this. I don't know, but there's nothing like that here.
Yeah, because I had no idea what this movie was going to be going into it. I almost expected them to win just because, like, oh yeah, the aliens just happened to leave behind one of their devices that would beam them back to their mothership in our room.
Yes, we can
That's
give
how
them
we win.
we can give them a computer virus somehow.
Just again, point is, I'm so glad we have a realistic bad ending here because I'm so sick of endings where we just win for no reason.
Yes, that's why I like the character of Pollard. He says his initial introduction to them, I don't fight this anymore. I literally moved away. I gave up. I can't beat them. It's there's nothing I could do. This is not the type of character you usually see in stories like this. He's not the, oh, I fought the devil and won 47 times, so I can help you. This is what you need to do. He's like, no, I can't help you.
Yeah,
So I did find that refreshing.
yeah. Here's my next house celebration. This is might just be solely for me. After woman sitting in the yard and mange man, this family dynamic worked for me.
Yes, that was actually my next cause of celebration I was going to talk about.
Yeah, they aren't the best like written characters ever, but they were pretty decent for what the story needed, especially after those last two stinkers I told you about.
And I think especially the family dynamic actually works. As we said, the fact that the dad is struggling because he doesn't have a job, it plays into his feelings of losing his family for many reasons, not just due to these weird factors that are occurring, but just the normal situations of life. His irritation, his annoyance, his anger, his shame, and letting anybody know what's happening, which is really making the situation worse. Okay, so that's all that we have for causes of celebration. Let's move into our causes of death. So, for me, the big one that I've talked about when we did our rundown, I think you can see the over reliance on paranormal activity types of tropes and scares that is still in the framework of the film. I think most of the stuff that is not that leftover found footage paranormal activity type of thing works far better. But some of that over reliance on paranormal activity, that just seems so cliched, and that was the most boring stuff. Like the stuff with them just watching the video monitors over and over again, looking for little details and stuff like that. I just felt like that just didn't work as
Yeah,
much as
that
the other imagery that we talked about.
it was so just paranormal activity, just obligatory because we catch the grays on the camera, and then what?
Yes, it doesn't really play a role in the story other than to say, yeah, this fits the framework of what you would do in paranormal activity. Like, this is Micah from paranormal activity looking at the footage. This is so just overdone. I just didn't like it. And this is where, and I'll list this as a cause of death for me. Part of what I didn't like about this, the aliens in this film behave a lot like ghosts. And I felt that the film made a mistake by crossing over too much into that ghost story element as opposed to staying more in the sci-fi element.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Even though I did appreciate it, I did like it. It felt like after they got done filming, like the first 3 days, they just like flipped a coin if it was gonna be aliens or ghosts.
Yes. In many ways, I feel like the actual problem I have with this film is that the aliens are no way distinguishable from ghosts in a ghost story. And they give them the same logic. And that's part of when Pollard is saying, like, oh, well, the Greys, they just like to trick you. They like to mess with your head. They like to use your fears against you. And I was like, why?
I was
That
like,
doesn't
yeah,
make
that
any sense.
that feels very ghosty.
Yes, it feels very ghosty. So that's where this still feels like a ghost story. They just kind of painted over it with an alien brush. That's what I
Yeah,
felt like the big problem with this film is.
in their defense, J.K. Simmons he does kind of clean it up a little bit when he's saying like, "Oh yeah, we're just lab rats to them. We're just in the experiment," which it cleans it up a little bit, but not that much.
Yeah, and that's part of where I wanted to make the tie-in of showing Sammy essentially torturing his pet lizard, almost like, well, maybe that's what we are to the Greys, that they just like playing with us. But at a certain point, it was just them really screwing with them for no reason other than say, haha, I'm going to get you in trouble with Child Protective Services.
Yeah, it's just
But like, why did
which
they put marks on Sammy's body only where his shirt would cover it if he were to go swimming?
yeah, which the Child Protective Services plot, the subplot, it's It's their name only, pretty much.
Yes, it fell apart pretty quickly. I would not believe the Sammy would be with the family at the end after Jesse was abducted. It just makes no sense.
I, especially after if you're given the fact that the day he was abducted, the dad went and bought a bought a gun.
Yeah. So yeah, like I just felt like keep it actually aliens as opposed to these mischievous trickster ghosts who are doing the exact same type of thing that you see in Paranormal Activity. We've seen the kitchen stacking objects and the kitchen explosions and all that kind of stuff in Paranormal Activity. Yes, we saw some of that in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but I just felt here they were just trying to ape Paranormal Activity so much that they just overdid it. My next cause of death, I alluded to in the rundown. I love Pollard's character. I wish he was introduced earlier in the film. And honestly, I wish that we had an arc with him. Maybe, and again, this is cliched because we've seen this before, these types of movies. Maybe at first he says he doesn't want to help the family, but then he does agree to help them, and you see him at the end. Give him more to do because J.K. Simmons is good, even in his limited capacity, and I just wanted more of that character.
Well, you know what? If they would have went the way you just said, I probably would. I probably would call it a cause of death because I could not stand when we just get the obligatory expert just to come in and just not help at the first. Okay, but here's my thing. How about we do the opposite? Instead of him coming in to help earlier, we have him come in to help when they're standing off against the aliens instead.
Yes, I would love to have seen him at the end of the film. And again,
Yeah,
this is where we're praising some very standard tropish cliches where the expert is there at the end to help, and maybe he gets killed, so you know the situation is serious. But I would like to see more of that character.
because let's be honest, J.K. Simmons is always a win.
Okay, and so we'll take another quick break and then we'll come back with our script stitch ups. You love your kids. You probably even like them. But what about their friends? Do you like the loud one, the sticky one, the one who calls you bro? That's where selective hospitality comes in. At Selective Hospitality, we help parents politely discourage unwanted friendships without ever saying, that kid is not welcome in my house. Use promo code POSTMORTEM for a free consultation and invitation to our workshop. They'll grow apart naturally if you try hard enough. Selective Hospitality, because you're raising a child, not hosting a daycare. Okay, we're back. So let's wrap with our script stitch ups and then we'll revisit our final scores. One thing that I thought about while watching the end of this film, and this is honestly the only real script stitch up that I have, the big plot twist, if you want to call it that, at the end is that Jesse, the older brother, was the target of the aliens the whole time. Mom learns this by seeing the photos that Jesse made when he was younger, where she sees the images of the Greys in his drawings. And that's when she realizes, wait, they were always after Jesse, not Sammy. The script stitch up that I would do is to make this revelation actually matter. Because I felt that at this point, Jesse's already been taken. It's like, oh, well, I guess that's why they took him. But it doesn't really matter because Jesse's gone.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about that because what's the point of revealing this drawing once the movie's already over?
Yes. So my script stitch up was to move this and what happens in the rest of the film. In my opinion, do a fake out. Make it seem like the family protected Sammy and nobody was taken. And then they're looking at these pictures and they realize, wait, Jesse was the first one who the aliens contacted, and then Jesse is taken after they think that they won. And then this is like a gut punch ending where you see Jesse abducted at the end after they realize this. Because I felt that this revelation didn't matter that late in the story because Jesse had already been taken. My last script stitch up, this was the line I alluded to earlier that I think should be cut from the script completely.
Oh, you talk about the one where they're first watching the cameras and she has that stupid line was like, "Oh yeah, is this your solution to our sex life?"
Yes. My reaction to that, I rolled my eyes so hard because, in my opinion, I always say things stand out if you can't believe that a character would say them in that moment in the story. Considering all the things that they were going through, I don't believe that either one of those characters would have been making even a lighthearted, tension breaking joke about their sex life in these cameras. You could cut that line out completely and the scene makes sense the way it's played because She says that he says some stupid, something. I can't remember what he says in return to her. And then it cuts to him saying, "Honey, we're gonna figure it out. I promise you, we're gonna get to the bottom of this." That makes more sense, not them making a sex joke. I was like, what is the purpose of that? This is not a film that's really trying to be funny.
Dude, I was silent for my entire watch of this movie, but once I got to that scene, I was just like, "What?"
Yeah. I was like, that is just not the moment they would have been making a joke. Literally, we're putting up cameras because we're worried about intruders in our house, weird entities, other things. No, that's a joke you make at the beginning of Paranormal Activity when they just first set up the cameras for some other reason.
It was at that point in the movie I was like, okay, like who let Makabe in? Who let him put in some of the script? Like, was who was it? Because I don't believe that any of y'all wrote that for this part of the movie.
Yeah, it's just way too late of a joke like that, and I just don't believe those characters would say that with everything else that was going on at that point in the story.
Absolutely not. Because like again, at this point in the story, things are happening. So like, why are we?
Yeah, like I said, that's an introduction to the characters, early Act One joke. That is not an Act Two, Act Three joke where you're talking about that kind of thing.
uh, oh boy!
So that's all I have for script stitch ups.
All right, cool.
So to revisit my summary and score, I still think Dark Skies is a very creepy, effective horror film. It blends the ghost genre with the alien genre, and even though I wish it stayed more in the alien sci-fi genre than the creepy trickster ghost genre, I still like it. A lot of that is due to the fact that the alien abduction imagery and scenario, that entire premise is just so scary and creepy to me. So even though the ending is a bit flat in my opinion, I still think this is a alien film that people should watch, especially if you like this genre. So I will stay with my 3 out of 5 stars.
That's fair. I think I would stay with my 3.5 out of 5 because I cannot beat this drum enough. This is a Blumhouse movie that didn't have me falling asleep. Thank Christ for that. And I still feel like this is a solid movie. So sticking with that 3.5.
So that's it for this episode of Movie Postmortem. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us 5 stars because even bad podcasts deserve a good review. Remember, whether it's good, bad, or just a guilty pleasure, every film deserves a postmortem. Thanks for listening.
And as always, the invasion already happened. We'll see you next time.